guys, I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much for joining me. I mentioned yesterday about the Chinese spy balloon that the Biden administration allowed to fly over the United States, lingering over Montana and Missouri, and it's evidently now over South Carolina. The government says they didn't want to shoot it down because they worried about debris falling on people. Well, why didn't they shoot it down when it was over the Aleutian Islands? Supposedly, they didn't want to disrupt talks with China, with Blinken over the weekend. It's evidently been up there floating around since the 28th of last month. This balloon that came in across Alaska reminds me of the Second World War when Japan used balloons with a payload that detonated it. And yeah, there was one family that was killed because of these balloons that were flown across the Pacific and started fires and actually killed American citizens. Canada announced on Thursday it was coordinating with the United States to track a spy balloon high above the earth. Well, it was right there where our planes are flying. You can listen to the track between the airlines and different airport towers. And Canada was also monitoring a potential second incident. So was there two of them? There was a picture posted of something exploding over Montana. I'm going to see if I can try and find that.
Holy crap, y'all. I thought this was a joke, but that joker is right here in Greer. What in the freaking world? I hope one of these backwoods rednecks snipes that thing down, since our government won't do nothing about it. Wow. Y'all go outside and look. Holy crap, y'all. I thought this was
Yeah, that was on Twitter. It was posted about 2 hours ago. Supposedly now, once the balloon gets over the Atlantic, they're going to shoot it down. Yeah, after it collected all its data. So is this the second incident here that Canada was following? It says, okay, here's what I caught a few minutes ago out my window. I saw a jet go by so fast, then an explosion in the sky. Holy crap, Billings, Montana. This comes from the Epoch Times. It says the balloon flew over northwest United States, the site of sensitive air bases and strategic nuclear missiles, with the state of Montana being one of the three homes for the U.S. Siloed nuclear weapons. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Miley, and the commander of NORTHCOM, General Glenn Van Herrick, strongly recommended not to take kinetic action due to the risk of safety and security of people on the ground from the possible debris field. Another Twitter post, remember when General Mark Miley confirmed that he told his Chinese counterparts that he would likely call ahead of any potential U.S. attacks on Beijing. Alright, here's an image of its track as it came into the United States. Yeah, they had their chance to shoot it down. It just didn't fly over here by accident. Storm chasers, I believe, took a photo of it. This is the clearest image that they posted. And in one of the letters, which I'll show you next, it has a payload. It evidently can maneuver. So it's got some kind of equipment where it can be controlled, hover, fly different directions. Here's a letter from Eric Schmidt sent to the Secretary of Defense. And let me make this bigger. It says, as I write, a Chinese asset hovers over the great state of Missouri. This is potentially a grave threat to national security that the Biden administration is allowing to violate U.S. airspace, while failing to provide critical details for the American people. Like I said, they've been keeping it hush-hush since the 28th. The lack of transparency is alarming. The Department of Defense has told the public very little about the Chinese asset. The Department of Defense said it is a Chinese balloon. It is over central United States. It is carrying surveillance gear as well as a payload. What's the payload? It has the ability to maneuver, and a decision was made not to shoot it down. The Department of Defense has said that instances of this activity have been observed over the past several years, including prior to this administration. Let's see, we got Russian warships off Hawaii. We got Russian warships or submarines in the Gulf of Mexico. We got them off the East Coast. Yeah, I think of Nostradamus' prophecy about fire at 45 degrees, which is supposed to be like New York, and how the president or those in charge delayed to do anything. And so, yeah, that disaster is expected to come. But the Department of Defense has refused to answer questions about the balloon's exact location. When the Department of Defense began monitoring the balloons and what options the Biden administration considered to this point or is considering in the future. Nor has the Department of Defense provided any information about past incidents where balloons entered or came close to entering U.S. airspace. Without answers to these critical questions, it is difficult to understand why the Biden administration decided to allow an asset from a foreign adversary to invade U.S. airspace. The Department of Defense said that this Chinese asset had violated U.S. airspace and international law, which is unacceptable. But despite this violation of our nation's airspace, the Department of Defense has taken no action to stop the Chinese assets from proceeding to pass over and likely surveil some of our most secretive military sites. This is especially important for us in Missouri. Whiteman Air Force Base, the home of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, is located in Missouri. The Chinese assets appear to have passed close to Whiteman, yet nothing was done to stop the asset from reaching Missouri. The American people deserve transparency and accountability immediately. I request immediate briefing for my colleagues so that we can provide constitutional oversight. I intend to partner with my colleagues to investigate the administration decision making process related to this violation of our nation's airspace and international law. I hope everyone takes this as a warning that the U.S. government is not going to protect your butts. You need to be prepared for any type of disaster. They've known since January 28th about this balloon. It could have very well had a EMP device up in there. Is it a trial run to test our national security? Well, the majority of our chips and a lot of our military equipment, guess where that comes from? China. A lot of our, well, most of our medicines come from China. They did not notify the public, and we have every right to know what is going on. Just another example, you wonder, would the government tell us if the nukes are starting to fly? Would they tell us for other disasters that we know about? No, I don't think so. This is a good example how they do not let the American public know how things are escalating. He had papers going back to when he was a vice president. He had no reason to have those top secret papers found in a garage in his house, in boxes on the floor of the garage that anybody had access to. What were in those papers? We all know about his son's laptop from hell, showing how he has been receiving payments supposedly from China going way back. We know about the corruption involving him and his son in Ukraine. We are depleting our oil reserve, which is supposed to be saved for a national emergency such as war, and sending some of that oil to China. We are depleting our stockpile of military equipment and ammo, sending that to Ukraine by way of maybe the Netherlands or Poland. And I talked about the weapons and how long it would take to restock those weapons, because they just can't ramp up the factories any more than what they are now. Here's a Twitter post from Ohio's Jim Jordan, representative. It says, would Trump have let China fly a spy balloon over our country? Would Reagan, JFK, Truman? No, 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 and no. So why is Biden letting China off the hook? Gordon Chang says that the Pentagon assertion that it didn't want to shoot down the Chinese spy balloon because the debris could have harmed people on the ground does not wash. The balloon crossed hundreds of miles of uninhabited Alaska before it entered Canada and China. Another Twitter post says, not sure why China would ever need to fly a balloon over us to spy when they can freely show up to get classified documents directly from Biden's home in Wilmington that has no visitor logs. Another Twitter post says China knows they can freely fly a spy balloon over our airspace because they have bought and paid for our personal data, our politicians, government officials, and our farmland. Here in South Dakota, they're thinking about making it where they can't buy any land here in South Dakota. I think they already have it. But speaking of personal data, yeah, all my information, China, through Social Security or something, I don't know, but it was from the government website that all my personal data was hacked and stolen by China. So now I have free protection, you know, to make sure there's nothing unusual going on with my account. It did make it a pain when I bought a handgun, a couple years ago, because my account is now flagged. And, yeah, so, yeah, they had to go through that review because, yeah, China has my information. Another Twitter post, Trump called attention to all the Chinese espionage in America, much bigger than just a balloon. The FBI even recently admitted that China operates a secret police force on American soil. I believe the FBI just recently raided one of those Chinese police stations there in New York. Yeah, the Epoch Times had an article about the secret CCP overseas police station in New York City closed after reports of FBI raid. Yeah, they were supposed to be tracking dissidents, threatening, you know, the Chinese citizens here. Anyways, yeah, it's a good thing so many Americans own guns. Yeah, we're not safe. We're not protected. You need to have a plan, stock up, be prepared. The U.S. don't even have underground bunkers for Americans anymore. There's some old relics maybe that might still be in use, but yeah, they are very limited in numbers, and I'm sure it's only open for the politicians. So what are your thoughts? Please put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And as always, be prepared and be safe. And I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.